another episode of Dietitians Dialogue. My name's Jamie Portnoy, your host. Today we have a very special guest, Allison Smetana, an occupational therapist. Allison, thank you very much for coming.
My pleasure.
We're very excited to have you today. So today we're going to ask you a ton of questions, and we want to get to know you, and we also want to get to know all about becoming an occupational therapist.
Okay.
So before we get started, let us know a little bit about you.
About me. I have been an occupational therapist for over 25 years. Hard to believe. And it's the kind of career that's kind of been able to ebb and flow as my life has changed. I have two children, an 18-year-old son and a 15-year-old daughter, and just a busy balancing work,
Sure.
children, family.
Very good.
Yeah.
And so how did you become an occupational therapist?
I always knew that I wanted to go into the healthcare field in some shape or form. And as I explored the coursework, the curriculum, I really liked the occupational therapy holistic approach of incorporating psychology, incorporating the physical science, really blending kind of the mind and body, which has always made a lot of sense to me. So that's what I did, University of Illinois.
Wow, very good. And then how does one become an occupational therapist?
So because I became an occupational therapist so long ago, I was able to get my bachelor's degree and start practicing. It's a lot more advanced now into the master's and doctorate areas. But there's the school component. You take your general coursework, move on to the more specialized anatomy, physiology, like I said, the psychology. Occupational therapy has the focus of occupational therapy. I know we'll talk a little bit more, but it's about function and activity. So I also had classes that were basket weaving and ceramics, and so that was very fun. And a nice balance, really, which is another piece of occupational therapy that I really like to bring through. So you have all that, and then I had to actually come back to Chicago. I was downstate. I came back to Chicago to the medical center campus to actually go through the occupational therapy curriculum.
And how about, what is a typical day like for you?
Well, so my specialty is in the orthopedic arena, and I really, even more of a niche is the industrial rehab. So I see a lot of people with work-related injuries, back injuries, knees, shoulders, that have been injured usually on the job, and my role is to find out where they're at functionally, find out what they need to do to be able to be a safe and productive employee, and then create a program strengthening, conditioning, work simulation to education as well, to get them back to work safely.
And then what are typical jobs like for an occupational therapist?
Yeah.
Do they work in hospitals? Do they work out of hospitals? Where are different settings for that?
Yeah, there's a lot of different settings for occupational therapists. So under the goal of occupational therapy is to maximize a person's function.
Okay.
So maximize their independence. Those that can fall within the hospital setting, someone who's just had surgery, they're weak. Or it could be a lot more complex where they've had a neurological injury or disorder, maybe a stroke, that we work with them on what the deficits are, and that can cover anything from their movement to their visual, perceptual, their cognitive processing. So we really address all those components of function to rehab them, rehab a person back to the best that they can be.
Sure. So, and then so is there occupational therapists then in nursing homes and then in inpatient settings and then outpatient settings?
Right.
So you'll find them in a variety of different places.
There's inpatient. So I'm an occupational therapist at Condell.
Okay.
And we have inpatient at the hospital, and then 5 off-sites where we treat outpatient.
Okay.
So someone might transition from an inpatient therapist to that outpatient to continue working on their goals. There's also pediatric therapists that specialize in another aspect of rehab, more developmental, sensory integration,
Sure.
for school-age kids. Very common in nursing homes to have occupational and physical therapy. And then there's other settings, like I said, the workplace I sometimes have treated actually on-site at companies rather than in the clinic, but
Very good.
Yeah.
So there's a wide variety of different places that one can work.
absolutely.
So we hear all the time ADLs. Can you describe to our viewers what exactly ADLs stand for, and then what exactly you do with the ADLs?
Yeah. So ADLs is definitely the occupational therapy buzzword. When physicians refer to us, a lot of times it refers to ADLs, and what that is activities of daily living. So that really encompasses everything from caring for yourself, getting up, being able to bathe or shower, to feed yourself, make yourself meals, get dressed, everything that a person would do that we rarely think about until it's affected in the course of a day. Some people are caretakers of other people, so we do like an inventory of what their ADL status is, and again, where those deficits are. Our goal is to provide that rehabilitation to get them to their maximum capacity.
Sure.
And then at that point, maybe they've maxed out before they're really fully functioning. Then we look at adaptive types of devices that would still allow them to even further maximize their independence, but do it in a different way.
So Allison, can you show some of our viewers some of the devices that patients use?
Sure. Our Orthopedic and Spine Institute, a lot of our ortho doctors do hip and knee replacements. It's very common in the arthritis population and many others. Anyways, after hip replacement, there are limitations, there are restrictions on movement while the body's healing.
Sure.
So they're not allowed to move past 90 degrees of flexion. So reaching for your shoes to get dressed, put your socks on, those are no-nos that we educate our patients on. So this is a long-handled shoehorn, and that would solve for someone living alone or someone that just wants to be able to do it on their own. This is a lifesaver for many people. It's a long-handled reacher, so you drop something, you can go ahead and pick it up. People can reach overhead that have limitations in their motion in all different directions. So we have some utensils as well. We adapt these many different ways. We might have weighted utensils, so someone with a tremor that could use more stability, that minimizes the tremor. They would use a weighted utensil. These have the angle in them, if you want to give that a try, so that someone who might not have that motion, the tool is angled so that it adapts to what their limitations are and allows them to still
be able to
eat.
And
Yes.
obviously nutrition is key.
Yes, it is. This is another device where someone would, if they don't have that fine motor, they would just have more of a full hand grip, and so they, again, and stability, really. Having soup can be challenging. Yeah,
These are great. This is wonderful.
Yeah, so people can maintain as close to an independent lifestyle as possible.
And still be able to use, all the proper tools and get their nutrition that they need on a daily basis.
Yeah. We have a couple other, so when I, looking at in terms of alignment and injury prevention, my role as well as rehabilitation is also to look at injury prevention for companies. So for instance, to avoid carpal tunnel, it's really important that your wrist stays in a neutral alignment. So I might go into a company that uses tools that people actually are in an improper position and redesign something so that they're able to stay in a better position while they're doing their work. For example, someone that uses a lot of wrist motion for their job is prone to something like carpal tunnel or tendinitis. So I would try to provide or modify tools there to put them in a more neutral or proper wrist position that would minimize the risk for injury. So we took a look at what the tool is, what the posture is, and try to put them in the best position for injury prevention. A couple more here. This one is a great little device, and it is called a Buttonhook. So again, without that dexterity to maybe arthritis, maybe a hand injury, without that dexterity, they would have a lot of trouble dressing themselves. So this just slides in the little buttonhole and hooks on, and using their bigger muscles, they're able to, again, maintain some independence. So those are just some examples that fill in where someone has reached their maximum capacity physically, but really, we can adapt to give them a lot more.
And do their ADLs,
And do their
activities
ADLs.
of daily living. So we've learned some new words today. Wow, so thank you very much for showing those to our viewers, because, now we can kind of get the picture with the actual, image. So we really appreciate that.
You're welcome.
So where do you see yourself in, 5 to 10 years, and, what are your big goals?
My goal, I have a passion for yoga. You've seen me or heard me. I really incorporate a lot of the principles that make sense to me. Like I said, that mind-body connection really just makes so much sense to me. So I've used it from a pain management standpoint, just the breathing, the posture, alignment, focusing with people on how do they manage their symptoms. The progression with a therapist should be, you come, you have that hands-on therapy, and the therapist slowly removes herself or himself from the picture. That person is able to manage more on their own. So they'll have exercise programs. They should be doing that on their own. How do they have a healthy lifestyle while we back away from that? So I am passionate about integrating yoga into daily life. I think it's just a healthy way of living. I have a passion about bringing it into the workplace. It's
that's wonderful.
Yeah, it's integrating a lot. It's out of the box, but when I've had the opportunity to do it, it's been great results. So
good. Sometimes we have to step outside of the box.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah.
Good. Very good. And what do you get, out of your job on a daily basis? I mean, it sounds like obviously a lot, but we want to hear from you what you get on a daily basis.
It really is rewarding to help someone restore pieces of their life. And it is, and that's exactly what we do. There's a lot of pieces, a lot of dynamics, but to watch someone come from a place where they've somewhat lost a sense of themselves, and that can vary with anybody, and help them bring those pieces back together and get back to being who they have been. It really is rewarding.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, Allison, it was a pleasure speaking with you today. We really appreciate all of this wonderful information, as well as, these wonderful devices that you shared with us today. So thank you very much for coming on the show today.
It was my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Remember, if you embrace nutrition, nutrition will embrace you. This is your show. I want to hear what you have to say. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter. Email me questions or suggestions for show ideas. Thanks for tuning in.